bomb found on the plane in mid-air. The pilot's panic-filled voice reached Ibrahim Traore's private cabin from the cockpit. "Mr. President, a time bomb has been detected." Traore looked at his watch, then at the plane's altitude. They were flying at 12,000 meters above the vast lands of Africa. There was no bomb disposal expert on the plane. "How much time do we have?" he asked calmly. "About 45 minutes, Mr. President." Traore took a deep breath. "Then we'll have to defuse this bomb ourselves." The president's special security chief, Marcel, asked anxiously, "Mr. President, this is very dangerous. Let's request an emergency landing at the nearest airport." "No," said Traore with a determined voice. "The nearest airport is in Mali, and it would take more than 30 minutes just to get there. We need to act now to find and defuse the bomb." The pilot continued to provide information through the intercom. "The bomb signal is coming from the cargo area, most likely among the diplomatic gifts that were last loaded onto the plane." Traore turned to his cabinet crew. There was the Foreign Minister Abdoulaye, Defense Minister Ouedraogo, and 3 security guards. "You understand the seriousness of the situation? No one will panic. Marcel, you'll come with me to the cargo area. The others will stay in the front of the plane." Marcel hesitantly came to Traore's side. "Mr. President, this is my job. Please stay in the safe zone. I can find the bomb." Traore touched the security chief's shoulder. "We'll do this together, Marcel. Let's not waste time." The 2 men proceeded through the narrow corridors of the plane to the cargo area. In the rear of the plane, there was a small area where diplomatic gifts and baggage were stored. The pilot was giving instructions over the phone. "Focus on the hand luggage and the boxes that were loaded last. The signal is getting stronger." Marcel began to carefully examine the baggage. Traore was helping too. Among various boxes, there was a series of newly loaded gift packages. "Where did these come from?" Traore asked. "From the last conference in Addis Ababa, sir," Marcel replied. "Gifts from representatives of African Union countries." Traore examined the packages and focused his attention on a small, elegant box. "There's no label on this box. It's not clear who it's from." Marcel carefully took the box and checked the signal inside. The signal meter on his phone suddenly accelerated. "This must be it, Mr. President. The signal is coming from this box." Traore examined the box. A medium-sized, ornate box wrapped with gold ribbons. "Let's open the box, but be very careful." Marcel slowly untied the ribbons and gently opened the box. Inside was a small, elegant statue, a figure of an eagle standing on a map of Africa. On the base of the statue, a digital clock was visible. 36:47, 36:46, 36:45. "Found it," Marcel whispered. "The time bomb is placed in the base of the statue." Traore took out his phone. "Inform the pilot. Contact security in Addis Ababa. We need to find out who brought this gift, who gave it." While Marcel was communicating with the pilot, Traore carefully examined the statue. "This is professional work, not an amateur job." A few minutes later, the pilot returned. "Mr. President, they've checked the security cameras in Addis Ababa. The gift was brought along with other gifts on the last day of the conference by a service employee. The man passed without having his identity checked." "A classic intelligence operation," said Traore. "Now let's get back to the main issue. How can we defuse this bomb?" Marcel began to quickly research bomb disposal techniques on his phone. "Mr. President, such devices usually contain a simple timer and explosive mechanism. We need to examine the statue very carefully." Traore turned the statue upside down and examined its base. There was a small panel. "We need to open this panel, but we must be very careful. There might be any kind of trap that could trigger the timer or detonator." Marcel found a small toolbox among the luggage. He took out a thin screwdriver. "Let me do this, Mr. President." "No, Marcel, I'll do it. You stay in contact with the pilot and prepare possible emergency protocols." Marcel reluctantly agreed. Traore took the screwdriver and carefully pried the edges of the panel. The panel opened slightly. Inside was a complex electronic circuit, a timer, and explosive material. "Here it is," said Traore. "Quite a sophisticated device. This is not an amateur job, but a professional assassination attempt." Marcel relayed information from the pilot. "Mr. President, we're in Mali airspace. The Mali government has granted permission for an emergency landing. We can land within 20 minutes. Traore looked at the timer. 24:18, 24:17. "We may not have enough time, Marcel. We need to defuse this bomb before beginning descent." Marcel was reading information from his phone. In clock-type bombs, there are usually two wires connected to the timer, one red, one blue. The red wire usually provides energy to the explosive, but this doesn't seem to be a simple model. Traore carefully examined the circuit. There are three wires here, red, blue, and black, and there also seems to be a touch sensor. If we touch the wrong wire, the bomb might explode instantly. The plane shook slightly as they hit an air pocket. Marcel lost his balance and almost fell onto the bomb, but Traore caught him just in time. "Be careful, Marcel. Tell the pilot to move to a calmer altitude." Marcel gave instructions to the pilot. Traore focused on the circuit again. "This circuit design looks familiar. I've seen similar devices in my military training. The black wire is probably a decoy. The real decision is between red and blue." "Mr. President, the risk is too great. Please, let's wait for landing. Experts on the ground can intervene better." Traore glanced at the timer. 18:05. 18:09. "Time is running out, Marcel. The bomb could explode before we land. I need to make a decision." Traore closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath. Then he opened his eyes and, with a determined expression, brought the screwdriver close to the blue wire. "I'm cutting the red wire," he said. "Mr. President, are you sure? All sources indicate the red wire is dangerous. This is not a standard bomb, Marcel. This design works in reverse. The blue wire is the power source. The red wire is deception." Traore pressed the screwdriver lightly against the red wire. With the cutting of the wire, the bomb device made a slight beep sound and the timer stopped. 16:42. Marcel took a deep breath. "Did it work? Are you sure, Mr. President?" Traore carefully examined the device. "The timer has stopped, but we need to do one more thing to be sure." Traore cut the blue wire as well. The device went completely silent. "Now we can be sure," said Traore. "The bomb has been defused." Marcel exhaled with relief. "You're incredible, Mr. President. You saved our lives." "What's most important is to find out who's behind this attempt," said Traore, taking a handkerchief from his pocket and wrapping the bomb mechanism. "Keep this device for analysis. We'll examine every piece." 2 hours later, at the presidential palace in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, Traore and his security team gathered. The bomb device had been analyzed by experts. "Our findings are as follows, Mr. President," said Intelligence Chief Captain Sako. "The bomb is an extremely professional military-grade device. Only a few countries' intelligence services can produce such devices." "Fingerprints? DNA? Any traces?" asked Traore. "No traces on the bomb device itself. Completely clean job. However, we detected a partial fingerprint on the outer surface of the statue. We're looking for a match in our database." Marcel joined the meeting. "Mr. President, we've completed our analysis of the security cameras in Addis Ababa. The person who brought the gift appeared to be of Malian origin, but his accent was different. Also, we found footage showing him having secret meetings with Western delegates attending the conference." Traore listened thoughtfully. "This is exactly as I expected. A contractor was used. Well, which Western delegations were at the conference?" "France, UK, USA, Germany, and Italy," Sako replied. "But he had the most interaction with the French delegation." "Not surprising," said Traore. "Our recent policies in Mali, especially the demand for French troops to withdraw, upset them." Just then, an intelligence officer hurriedly entered the room. "Mr. President, the fingerprint results are in. Name, Jean-Pierre Diallo, a former member of the French Foreign Legion, now working in private security companies. Last known employer, French DGSE." Traore received this information calmly. "Now, we have a concrete connection. This may not be a direct intervention by French intelligence, but it shows at least an indirect connection." "What do you want to do, Mr. President?" asked Marcel. "We'll do two things," said Traore. "First, initiate an international search for Jean-Pierre Diallo. Second, summon the French ambassador to the palace first thing tomorrow morning." The next morning, French Ambassador Michel Fournier came to the Burkina Faso presidential palace. The ambassador appeared tense and defensive. "Mr. Ambassador," said Traore, "I have a question for you. How does the French Republic prefer to communicate with African leaders? Through diplomacy or through explosives?" The ambassador blinked in confusion. "I don't understand, Mr. President. What are you referring to?" Traore placed photographs of the bomb device and Jean-Pierre Diallo's file on his desk. "Yesterday, a bomb was found on my private plane. Analysis shows it's French-made and connected to a former French agent." The ambassador looked at the file in shock. This is a serious accusation, Mr. President. The French government would never approve such an action. This person may have worked for us once, but must be acting independently now." "Diplomatic words, Mr. Ambassador," said Traore, "but the facts are clear. We have strong evidence that France is behind this assassination attempt, and there will be consequences." "What kind of consequences, Mr. President?" asked the ambassador, his voice trembling. "First, I demand the complete withdrawal of all French military presence in Burkina Faso within 30 days. Second, we will pressure on all international platforms for Jean-Pierre Diallo to be found and delivered to Burkina Faso. Third, we demand a full explanation about this incident. If any of these demands are not met, we will suspend all diplomatic relations with France." The ambassador paled. These are very serious consequences, Mr. President. I need to consult with my government." "Of course consult," said Traore in a cold tone, "and tell them this. African leaders are no longer afraid. Threats, assassinations cannot intimidate us. Each attempt only makes us stronger." A week after the bomb incident, Ibrahim Traore gave a live speech on Burkina Faso national television. The whole country was watching. "My dear citizens," Traore began, "last week there was an assassination attempt on my life. This attempt failed. However, this incident showed the threats that our country still faces." The cameras showed every face in the hall. The people were carefully listening to their leader's words. This assassination attempt was planned with French support. Its aim was to stop Burkina Faso's progress on the path to independence, but they failed, and they will never succeed. As Traore continued his speech, he announced that France had agreed to withdraw its troops, but Jean-Pierre Diallo was still not found. This incident taught us an important lesson. For true independence, we need to be self-sufficient, not just politically, but in terms of security as well. Therefore, today, I announce the establishment of the National Security Academy. This academy will train our youth in intelligence, cyber security, and counter-terrorism. The hall filled with applause. Traore continued with a smile. Additionally, we will strengthen our security cooperation with African Union countries, because an attack on one African country is an attack on the entire continent. At the end of the speech, Traore raised his hands and said, "They cannot scare us. They cannot silence us, because we, the people of Burkina Faso, are ready to pay any price for our freedom and independence, and let the whole world know this." A few months later, in a cafe in Paris, Jean-Pierre Diallo received a message on his phone while sipping his coffee. When he opened the message, his face instantly paled. The message contained just one photo, a photo of the bomb found on Ibrahim Traore's plane, and a note below, "We will find you. Diallo quickly looked around. No one seemed to be watching him. But there was a fear inside him. Burkina Faso's new intelligence service had found his trail, and Traore would never give up. The same day, in Ouagadougou, Traore and his security team were inaugurating the newly established National Security Academy. The academy's first students were excitedly listening to the president. "Today, we're not just opening an academy," said Traore. "Today, we're securing the future of Burkina Faso and Africa. These students will be tomorrow's leaders, and they will not bow to threats from external powers. Instead, they will protect our country against these threats." As Traore finished his speech, his eyes gazed into the distance. He thought of those moments on the plain when he came face to face with death. Each threat, each assassination attempt made him stronger, and most importantly, it increased the support of his people. "Today here I make a promise to you," said Traore. "Burkina Faso will always protect its independence and dignity, and I will fight for this cause until my last breath." As the hall stood and applauded, Traore knew in the depths of his heart that this struggle would not be easy. But at the same time, he also knew that every challenge was a step on the path to Africa's true independence. And Ibrahim Traore would continue to walk this path, despite all kinds of threats, despite all kinds of assassination attempts.